Hello, I'm Nima Rajan. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau says the federal government is spending $130 million to help communities in the north withstand the COVID-19 pandemic. More than half of the money is being sent to the 3 territorial governments for their health and social services. But millions of dollars will support airlines that serve the north and subsidy programs to defray the cost of food and hygiene products that are expensive to ship. Meanwhile, Conservative leader Andrew Scheer is calling for federal parties to strike a deal on a safe way for Parliament to meet. Without one, business is scheduled to resume as normal Monday following a March decision to send MPs and senators home as part of national efforts to curb the spread of COVID-19. Mr. Scheer says no one wants to see either chamber packed with people, but adds that it is essential to resume Parliament so that there is some measure of accountability. Well, half of all COVID-19 deaths in Canada and 41% of all deaths in Ontario have been long-term care residents. There have been at least 89 outbreaks reported in long-term care homes across the province, with 741 residents infected and at least 120 residents dying of the virus. The Registered Nurses Association of Ontario wants the province to restrict healthcare workers from working in more than one long-term care or retirement home, which they often do because they are unable to get full-time positions. Well, federal figures show that 5.38 million people are getting payments through the Canada Emergency Response Benefit. The Bank of Canada will make a rate announcement and issue an economic outlook on Wednesday. Since the beginning of March, the central bank has slashed its key interest rate to 0.25% from 1.75%, including 2 unscheduled cuts. At the last of those unscheduled cuts, the bank indicated that the target overnight rate was as low as it could be. Drug giants Sanofi and GSK are teaming up to develop a vaccine for COVID-19 that is based on Sanofi's flu vaccine, but it would also contain a booster from GSK that could help stretch the doses of the vaccine further. The companies aim to start clinical trials later this year. There are dozens of efforts to develop a vaccine underway around the world, with most experts predicting that it would take at least 12 to 18 months before one is produced. Well, experts have some advice for anyone who has been concerned about ordering in their favorite restaurant meal. They say the chances of getting the novel coronavirus from a food courier are quite low. University of Guelph food science professor Keith Werner says there are more chances of being infected by a person rather than a parcel. He recommends frequent hand washing, particularly before and after handling food and containers. A Leger poll suggests that 29% of Canadians think work and leisure restrictions should only be lifted once the country is free of new COVID-19 cases for at least 2 weeks. 90% of respondents say they are following rules on social distancing. Until current restrictions are lifted, 40% say they would report someone who is not obeying public health rules. Energy market analysts say Canadian oil wells will likely continue to be shut down, despite an agreement to limit output struck by OPEC and other major producers. The price of Western Canadian Select bitumen blend oil rose by almost 5% from Thursday's close, but remained stuck below $5 US per barrel today. Kevin Byrne, a Calgary-based oil market analyst at IHS Markit, says the agreement to cut 9.7 million barrels per day of crude output is unprecedented. Well, major Canadian airlines are suspending international flights for at least a couple of months because of the COVID-19 pandemic. Air Canada is suspending most international flights until June, while Air Transat and Sunwing Airlines are canceling all trips until May 31st. The decision extends the suspension of more than 160 Air Canada routes, as well as Air Transat and Sunwing trips by another month, as closed borders and vanishing travel demand continue to affect the airline industry. In the U.S., New York Governor Andrew Cuomo is pushing back against President Donald Trump's claim of total authority to reopen the nation's economy. Governor Cuomo said on NBC's Today that if President Trump ordered him to reopen New York's economy prematurely, he wouldn't do it. Mr. Trump said Monday that for the President of the United States, the authority is total. He was reacting to moves by governors on both coasts to form multi-state compacts to coordinate reopening society amid the global pandemic. Meanwhile, Joe Biden has received the endorsement of his former rival in his run to be the Democratic U.S. presidential nominee. In a joint live stream appearance, Senator Bernie Sanders threw Biden his support. Senator Sanders cited ongoing work between the two camps on several policy matters as the reason for the endorsement, and he said the biggest priority is defeating Donald Trump. Well, stock markets in Europe and Asia rose today, even though investors are bracing for news on how the coronavirus pandemic has hurt corporate earnings and the Chinese economy. New data out today shows China's exports fell at a slower pace in March than in the previous 2 months. Forecasters are warning of harder times ahead as the coronavirus pandemic depresses global demand and disrupts production, supply chains, and finance. Well, South Korea reports North Korea has fired a barrage of missiles from the ground and fighter jets into the waters of the country's east coast. It is seen as a show of force on the eve of a key state anniversary in the north and parliamentary elections in the rival south. A South Korean official says North Korea appears to be resuming military drills that it had scaled back due to concerns about the coronavirus pandemic. Well, Russia's foreign minister has rejected Western claims that Moscow is using the coronavirus crisis to expand its political influence. Russia sent military medics and disinfection experts to Italy as virus infections and deaths surged there last month. A similar Russian team was later dispatched to Serbia. Minister Lavrov pointed to Russia shipping medical supplies to the United States this month and President Donald Trump offering to reciprocate as a partner-like approach. Well, federal prosecutors in Switzerland have announced the indictment of an Iraqi citizen who is suspected of being a high-ranking member of the Islamic State group. The man has been in custody after his arrest in May 2017. The indicted man allegedly served as a recruiter, trafficker, and cash provider for IS. Prosecutors accuse him of trying to incite a fellow member to carry out a suicide attack in Lebanon and receiving instructions to launch an attack in Switzerland. The indictment charges him with violating Switzerland's ban on extremist groups. Forest fires are raging in the contaminated area near the Chernobyl nuclear power plant, but officials say there is no radiation threat. Hundreds of firefighters backed by aircraft have been battling forest fires around Chernobyl since last week. They have managed to contain initial blazes, but new fires now rage close to the decommissioned plant. Ukraine's State Emergency Service said the situation is under control. Activists warned, however, that one of the fires is getting dangerously close to the plant's waste storage facilities. Well, singer Jon Bon Jovi popped in on a Florida kindergarten teacher's writing lesson about being stuck at home during the COVID-19 pandemic. Last month, Bon Jovi released an incomplete version of Do What You Can, a ballad about the battle to contain the virus, and asked fans to submit verses to help complete it. Teacher Michael Bonnick sent some of his students' writings, and Bon Jovi agreed to talk to the class. Bon Jovi strummed an acoustic guitar and sang out 3 of the students' descriptions about life in quarantine, each one touching on themes of idleness and isolation. Well, that'll do it for today's news update. I'm Nima Rajan. Thank you for joining us today, and I'll see you next time.